thanks for being here. As you know, our meeting starts 11:30, but we do build the first thing in is fellowship and lunch. And so that's what you've been doing. And keep doing that. And as people trickle in, they can just join us. Welcome to our second DEAC meeting of the year. You all got the agenda, right? You emailed it. And so I'm going to plug through. We've got a lot to cover, but I'm super excited to have you. I do want to just, one special guest is David Borger. I'm sorry to put him on the spot. Clay Page, our trustee, is the standing member of this committee, but he double booked with a board, a bond committee, building committee meeting over in Jimmy's office. And so David's pinch hitting for him. So thanks for being here, David.
You got it.
He won't be here next time, I don't think, but who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe. So welcome. Before we jump in, so I need to double check. I need to remind myself what we're doing. So we're going to do calendar first, District of Innovation next. Hey, then Brian is going to talk about the Technology Committee. Then Jimmy is going to talk about CBAS, and she's going to end us all. So, I'm going to jump in with calendar. So I will give you a quick overview. Is that this is the time of year we start developing the calendar for next year. I know it's like way ahead of schedule, but it takes a long time. And so I've given you some handouts, and I'll give you a second to peruse them, and let me explain what they are. The first is an overview of just kind of all the things that the parameters within which we operate for the calendar. The next page, or the next two pages are this year's calendar, and then the other one is next year's draft calendar. So I'm going to give you a few minutes just to read over that, and we'll talk about it, but I don't want to keep talking while you read. The first thing is to explain is that I give you that bulleted sheet not because you need to be an expert on developing the calendar. Heaven knows I'm not an expert on developing the calendar, and I would happily hand that off to anybody in this room who wants to do it. It's a lot of moving parts, but I do want to illustrate that there are certain constraints that we operate within. So those are the constraints that we look at. We have some flexibility, but I work hard to squeeze all of that out for the benefit of our teachers and our staff. So I want to make that point, and I'll talk about that in a second. So over the years, we've really built in as much as we could things to make it optimum condition working here, whether that's a teacher workday, whether that's early release, staff development. So I know from the parent end, you guys really do lift some load for us because there's some things you got to keep your kids at home and take care of them. But that really helps a trade-off with our teachers to make this a great place to work. I don't have to tell you that there's a teacher shortage in the state of Texas as well as the nation. We're fortunate that we start school fully staffed, but we are the only school district in the area that does. And so we want to thank the parents for helping us balance that. Now students, I'm sure you don't really mind being out of school when teachers are here sometimes, and so, but we want to thank you as well. And so in particular, I'm going the wrong direction. You all read all that already. So these are some things that we added last year that were new, and so if I have any errors, we can correct that here. October 10th was a new holiday last year for teachers. We had that holiday this year, and that's very much appreciated for the teachers because it's October's a very trying time. Grades are due, there's just a lot going on. And so that's a new holiday. Teachers have really appreciated that, so thanks. Students have always had that holiday. It used to be a staff development for us. So that was new last year. Last year, we also added 2 new work days that were teacher holidays. Teachers appreciated it last year. They appreciate it again this year. We had that one in October. And then last year was our first year of doing elementary parent conferences. Rather than spread it over 2 half days, we just said, let's do one student holiday and try to pack them as much as we can in. Now, as always, even when we used to have 3 half days of parent teacher conferences back in the day. Even in those days, you could have them all over the place during the week because we want to make it convenient for parents. They're not all on that day. So on that last day, when it's a holiday, if you had your parent conference earlier in the week, that's fine. It's just a time to make sure that we have time to have it. And then that's worked well. There was, last year at this time, we didn't really know how that was gonna work, because it was the first time last year, and that ended up working okay. Those are things we did new last year. Now, for this current year, we might not have experienced all the new things, but the calendar's already adopted. But all the new things we did last year, this year, I went ahead and marked on the calendar bad weather days, or inclement if you prefer. That is just in case we have a bad weather day and we don't have enough extra minutes. So that's how it works. I have to make sure kids log 75,600 minutes throughout the year. That's the state law. But what time you start and what time you end, that's up to you during the school day. Well, we have all that, but in order to get some extra days for some of these student holidays and teacher work days, I had to squeeze some of those extra minutes. So I'm like to the bone in terms of if there's a bad weather day, what we do. We didn't have high school, was that a few weeks ago? Because of some electricity issues, and we had to send Howard home early because of some water issues. We had enough extra minutes that we don't have to make that up. So he said, okay, build that in. But I can only build in so much because teachers have to work 187 days. And so we're getting to that point. So if something does happen, I might have to use those. That's a long story. You don't really care, but if we have a bad weather day, you will. We added in 2 early release days, so I know that's hard on parents, but it helps us, because otherwise, if we don't have that time, the teachers are having to stay after school or come early for various staff development. So it just helps them to manage a big workload. And then I talked about the 2 new work days, teacher work days. So it's possible as the handout, maybe I cut and pasted wrong, because I think my slides are right. Yeah. Sorry about that. And so we also have a teacher work day in February. That's going to be new, so we haven't really experienced that yet. I presume the teachers will like that. Oops, backwards again. Now, one thing to note, and this is, I didn't update this, but I think it's generally the same, about our employees and where they live. While we do have a lot of our employees who don't live here and work here, they have the privilege of bringing their kids to school here. And a lot of them do, but it's not universal. Not every employee who works here brings their kids here. And so a fair amount of them do live in those districts. The second thing to note, however, is that we interact with those schools. And so when we're thinking about scheduling our athletic competitions or band, fine arts, or any other kind of fine arts competitions, it is really important to try to maintain the same kind of schedule. So like spring break, for example, we got baseball games and softball games and all kinds of stuff. And so if we have the same spring break, it just makes that much easier. You don't 100% do that because we all come out, kind of mixes up the schedule. But at any rate, so we try to keep it as close as we can with those folks. And so you saw, I'm not going to project, I said I was going to project it, I'm not. The thing I want to point out is it looks the same, essentially. The one difference is spring break. And I'm still working on this, but I like having spring break right before that, what's it called, spring forward hour that we lose, because it gives people a chance to kind of get acclimated. We were fortunate to have that in this year's calendar. Going into next year, I had Jimmy, kind of informally ask folks, because Northeast and Northside, they're such big districts, they have to be real careful about what they tell us, and they never want to tell us anything, because the second it gets out, then it's going to get back to their board, and they're going to be like, what? We're doing whatever? And it's all just preliminary stuff. But preliminarily, right, nothing official, it looks like they're going to be going with that spring break that's later, which you see that in the draft. And the main reason is that they try to coordinate with the Alamo Community Colleges because they have so many kids that are taking classes there, and they try to keep the spring break the same. I actually am bugging Alamo Community to see if they will reconsider that, because I just think it's better for people not to have to go to school when you're getting used to the time change. But I just started that conversation. So But if it doesn't change, it's gonna land there, and that's what it looks like. Any other questions?
Am I crazy? Didn't I hear that the nation is getting rid of the time change?
Well, there was a proposal that
Am I
passed the
crazy?
Senate, but it didn't pass the House.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it was-
A couple
Okay,
of
so
years
I'm not
ago.
crazy, but,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
But I
and
thought
in the
this was
state of
like our last
Texas,
year.
Lyle Larson, who's not a representative anymore, but for years, he tried to get it changed.
Okay.
For years, and for some reason, people just don't go for it. And he's not in the.
Just a rumor.
So I did want to talk about October. We talked, from the parent perspective, I know it's wonky. It's like, man, we sure are out of school a lot, and I get that. But like I mentioned, if you're a teacher and you're in the school business, October is known throughout the nation, I think really, for sure in Texas, as Darktober. It's just a very stressful time. If you think about it, we've gone through the honeymoon's over. We kids know us, we know the kids. Parents know us, we know the parents. Grades are due. We got grade checks, and it tends to be a very stressful time. And so we intentionally build in the various holidays, teacher work days, and early release days, and even parent conferences. That's a stressful time because teachers are doing a ton of work. And so while from your end, I don't know what you experience as a parent. From the teacher's end, it's helpful for us. Carrie?
I'm a Woodridge parent, so I would be a little concerned about the October 25th,
Yeah.
because that would be when Carnival would be.
Oh, good. Nice catch. Yeah. So I can
Yeah.
certainly move that to another Friday. Yeah, that's good. Oh, will you make a note of that? I'll follow up with Jared. That's great. Great catch. Now, thanks. The other thing of homecoming, we didn't plan it this way. So, we adopt the calendar before we've got the football schedule and pick what homecoming is. But this year, that early release Wednesday just happened to fall on Howdy night, and it seemed to work okay.
Yeah, that was
nice.
good.
All right. So I'm not going to pretend to claim that, but I will have conversations with staff to see, and the trustees, that after we adopt the calendar, if homecoming's in that general area, if we move that early release, it just kind of works out for everybody, right?
Have y'all ever considered combining like a Friday, Monday to make a 4-day weekend instead of a bunch of 3-day weekends? Kind of a fall break-ish type situation?
We have not.
So this week it felt like there was a
like-
Monday holiday and then the Friday of the next weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she's just saying
we can certainly-
stacking them.
Yeah.
That would be a good
We can
idea.
certainly look at that. I will say,
For parents.
we do place every every teacher workday, that's a student holiday, and every early release day, we try to spread them out so that we have 1 to 9 weeks. So we try to make them equidistant in terms of work. And so if we ever did clump them, we might, but we would want to make sure that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul on one end. But Chuck certainly look at that, yeah.
Like October 13th.
You
Oh
got
wait,
that.
I'm looking the wrong one. Like October 18th through the 21st,
Right. Move that conference up
instead
to
of the 14th.
Write
The
that down.
14th might be.
Oh, that's
No, I
officially a
think-
But you
holiday.
could move
and
the
if they don't-
25th,
to
that
be
elementary,
Yeah.
because you have to move the 25th.
So we'll
and
make a
then-
note, and that's why we don't do
To
calendar in the
18th.
whole committee. We got little subgroups that they work on.
Yeah.
But I'll make that note. That's good feedback.
Can I
Yeah,
ask a question?
David?
The reason that you don't try to put too many in one 9-week period is because it doesn't help the teachers out. Is that why? Like,
Yeah. So here's an
because
example.
they have work that's like loaded depending on the 9
Yeah,
weeks.
like if we divide the year into 4 9 weeks, and we want to insert some work time for teachers to take a deep breath and finish their grades, we want to, because that's grades are due every 9 weeks. We only have so many days to go around. Like I still have to get 75,000 minutes, and I still have to have the teachers work 187 days. And so, sure, I can put all kinds of holidays in October if I want, but then I just don't have that days to spread around to those other times. So you want to give a breather every 9 weeks, really.
Okay.
So breather in October, breather in February, breather in March, April, and then end of the year is just kind of a downhill sprint. Yeah. Thanks, David. Yeah.
And I'd probably say one of the reasons why y'all probably don't do like a 4-day week is for attendance reasons. Possibly. Because
Well,
I
we
know
do-
like the trend at the junior school, the longer break we have, parents tend to take their kids out the day before also.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it might be because of attendance.
We do watch, like so for example, when we added Friday as elementary parent conferences, we're like, are we gonna take a hit on attendance at junior school and high school? You know, because people are like, hey, let's just keep my other kids home too. Well, we didn't. I checked last year and it worked pretty good. High school is actually very high. We took a little bit of hit at junior school, but high school still had like 94% attendance on that Friday. If we can get rid of Austin city limits, I think our secondary attendance would be. I'm joking. I would never want to get rid of that.
Just one more thing I was going to throw out. Halloween is on a Thursday next year, so there's a Friday that a lot of parents, I'm sure, would be very happy to not have to, and teachers maybe not have to
November 1st.
send their kids to school. If that worked with fitting in one of these teacher holidays.
You mean November 1st?
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Or staff.
So you
whatever
think the
days.
carnival's going to be on the 25th?
Yes, that's what we were
So what if you
planning
did
on.
conferences on November 1st?
Yeah, is that-
something like that?
Is that
I just
weird to
think
have
far out.
conferences that late?
It's really
I'll look at it.
far.
Write that down.
It's
We'll look at
far.
it. Thank you. Hey, by the way, next year, I'm gonna do a call for the subcommittee, and those of you who have such great ideas, I'm gonna have to come. We have a little meeting at 4:30, it's like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and all of this stuff helps prior to bringing it to the big group. Yeah, Kristen?
Can I put out March? And I think it's because it looks like when March, if the spring break is as late as it is, we tag the staff development workday to the 24th. Maybe that's why, but the actual this school year, that day occurs at the end of the marking period. And the end of the marking period would actually be, when grades were due, would be the 10th. And so if the spring break stays the way it is, would teachers not more benefit from the workday when grades, we're gonna try and get grades due?
Yes, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do the other way. We're gonna double check with the deans, and we're gonna set the end of marking periods to be convenient with those work days.
Okay.
So in other words, we made this, we changed the spring break based on what I heard from Northeast, but we didn't go back and make those adjustments. So we still have time to make that. So when the board adopts a calendar, it's for the days we attend. Internally, we set those into the 9-week days. And I'll work with staff on that. I pointed at Jimmy because she works with deans. Thanks, Kristen. Anything else? All right. So I'm gonna wait to hear how the community college and Northeast does. And then I'll do my usual 2-week input from the community, see what they say. So, but I don't quite know when that's going to be. Thank you all so much. Well, there you go. Now please don't go floating these around or posting them on social media. If you have already deleted it, for these are all just drafts. But I thought it was just easier for you to have a copy in front of you. So you can certainly leave those on the table when you leave. What's next? Oh, it's me. Okay. All right. Now the next one is wonky again. Well, I don't know if you consider that wonky, but this is definitely wonky by any measure. And this is one that is official, and I will need to take a vote and a motion and all that kind of stuff. There's a law called that passed several years ago called it's a District of Innovation, and the idea was to say, you school districts, you always complain to us about how bureaucratic the state is. Well, we're going to pass this law, and if you go through a process that includes community and the board, you can ask to get exempted from certain laws if you want. There's a whole list of laws that you cannot get exempted from. But for example, state testing, you can't get exempted from that. Minimums of school, you can't get exempted from that. But they said, this is just the list you can't. Anything else that's not on the list, fair game. Exempt yourselves, go through a process, get your board to approve it, and then you don't have to follow that particular law. And so there's a process, but I think I'm going to get into what we do use. I don't know if you knew, but the law says you're not supposed to start school until after the 3rd Monday in August. So that's why the North Side, they're still starting. They start later than us. We start earlier. Well, that's because we exempted ourselves from that law. And I think y'all will agree you like that because then we get out earlier. The next is that the law says that in grades K through 4, you can't have classes above 22. Now our classes are generally lower than that, but for languages, we always have to go through this bureaucratic red tape is to write a waiver, because for language classes, dual language and Spanish immersion, we have to build those bigger because you get attrition over time, and you can't really have a good language program if in the 4th grade you only got 15 kids, And so we've always had to write those waivers. Well, that exemption just saves us from the time and effort of writing those stupid waivers. It's only for languages for us. Because we do, in general, we're like 18 to 1 kinder, 19 to 1, 20 to 1, 21 to 1, and it builds to 22 to 1 at 4th grade. So our class sizes are stable generally. This one, it's a double. But they said, because people like dealing with discipline, you have to say one person's in charge of discipline. We all know it takes a team effort, right? So at the high school, you're going to deal with 3 different APs. So we don't designate one person, it's all of them working together. Certain teacher certifications. Right now, world languages, we exempt ourselves from that. There's dual credit stuff that's CTE. And that's really because like we had somebody who lived in France and grew up in France and was like taught in France but wasn't certified. It's a great French teacher. She wasn't certified at the time. So that just made sense. We have a culinary arts teacher over at the high school who is a restaurateur, is an expert, does great with kids, but just not a teacher. And so we got a waiver from that. And then this one is when teachers come to us, one law says that if they've been teaching 5 of the last 8 years in public school, that after 1 year they can go directly to a term contract, which is a stronger contract. This gives us the option to do 1 more year probationary just to get to know them a little bit better. And that works out for everybody. But that stuff we've already been doing. I probably spent 2 inches on that. But just to let you know, what I'm coming to you today is the stuff we want to add. So we'll keep doing that stuff, but we want to add a few more to the certification list, and I'll explain why. And then we also want to add some exemptions from the rules about committees like this, and I'll tell you why that is. So the first one is very specifically, we will list this, right? We do think it's important for teachers to be certified in math and writing and reading and social studies. But we've come across a situation at the high school. We do teach a yoga class, we teach a dance class, we teach a cheer class. And so if I had a teacher who was like a dance instructor that was just a great dance person, but they weren't a teacher, well, that would be great for our kids to be able to have that person. Same thing with cheer, same thing with yoga. And so we'd like to add that to our exemption list, but only those. And at the junior school, now just the junior school, we're not talking about the high school, we teach a journalism class. And so usually that's a great English teacher that's a great English teacher, but you don't have a lot of journalism programs. And so to go make that teacher go get a journalism certification is just kind of a pain. And so we'd like to list that. Same thing with our technology classes, tech apps where the kids are learning about how to use computers. That is, our experience is that we have a lot of teachers that know that, but making them go get a separate certification is kind of a pain. And the same thing is for health. We have a 9-week health class. You've taught it, right? You don't currently teach, right? You did before.
Correct.
Yeah. That we have a curriculum that's been approved by, well, not all the curriculum. You guys approved the sex ed part, but all the curriculum, it's the same curriculum we've been using. It's a 9-week course. We feel like any PE teacher that we have, that we train them up with our curriculum office, can teach that class, rather than have to go get a whole certification. The certification generally is like the high school teachers, they teach a whole semester of that class. So that's what we want to add. Now, I want to remind you that we do have a teacher shortage, and so that's really why we want to do it. And I also want to remind you that we have a very robust interview process. And so we're not just taking anybody anyway. So if we want to hire them regardless, and if they're not certified in those areas, they're still a pretty solid candidate. And just a quick overview of that. We've got a scripted interview that takes between 30 and 45 minutes to give. We record those, we take notes, we record those videos. They have to, on that instrument, we're all trained in how to use it as administrators. And people have to have a certain profile. It's not about like a score, it's about like what your strengths are as a teacher. And then somebody else has to listen to it. I mean, this takes a lot of time. I did a 45-minute interview with you. I think you're great. I kick it over to Jimmy. I say, hey, Jimmy, I'm not going to tell you what I wrote, but I want you to listen to this. So she has to listen to it, 45 minutes. She takes notes. Then we have to get together. We have to make sure that we calibrate and settle on one picture of this person's profile. It's a lot of time, but we feel like it helps us make sure we get strong candidates. Then we have to make reference checks, and we have to say, like, hey, is this person a rock star? We really flag red flags on that thing. And then there are also some additional things depending on the campus. Sometimes they have to come in and do a sample test lesson. Sometimes they have a committee interview. There's all kinds of other things. But we do a lot of stuff. So we feel like if we add this extra, those particular certification things, we're still going to be good shape. I just want to reassure everybody. Okay, that's one. I'm going to stop there. Any questions just about that certification? Because I'm about to start the second one. All right. Now, the next one, this is really bureaucratic, and this is part of why they passed this law, I think, I hope. And that is, I don't know if you knew, but we have this committee for the district, and I also have to write a district improvement plan. It's got rows and columns, and it says all these stuff we have to do. And guess who reads it? Nobody. But I have it because it's a compliance piece, and if anybody ever audited us, I would show them that. Well, the campuses do the same thing. Are you familiar? They have a campus site-based committee, right? And so probably some of you are on some of those. Well, that's in statute as well. And also, they write a campus improvement plan, and they write it. Maybe they talk to you about you, but I think most people don't read it. And so here's an example on the next page. Well, I'll get some examples, but the ask is that instead of doing campus improvement plans, that we shift it to do campuses do the same thing Jimmy does. You know how at the end of every one of these meetings, she walks you through data and she shows you and she asks you for your feedback? We want to just do that at the campus level. And I think you'll agree that that process works pretty well. This is essentially, so this is a snapshot of Woodridge's, right? So it looks like this, and we've done our best to make it relevant, but at the end of the day, it's still, we just go through, I mean, this is all the stuff we do. And Woodridge's is 60 pages. That'd be nice for the principals not to have to do that in the summer, right? And that's kind of, but they're still gonna do substantive work, like Jimmy does with CBAS. They're gonna do that on their level. Anything to add, Jimmy?
No, I think it'll be really nice to have that alignment between the campus, community-based accountability, and the district. So I'm really excited about that change.
Yeah. And then along with that, I'm also asking, I want to examine some rules that I, to be honest with you, I wasn't really following that much anyway. I mean, I'll just be honest. So we have a great team, right? This team here, the composition is, I always make sure it's 1/2 parents. And then I have, I think 2 reps from each campus. And we always got lots of teachers involved, but we've got lots of parents involved. And I feel like we do a great job. Well, in the statute, it kind of really, it's more restrictive about who should be on there. Like it says you should get a business category. Well, I think we got lots of business people just from our general parent pool. So I want to eliminate that. And it also suggests that we should have a 2/3 ratio of teachers. Like I just don't, I think it's the 50/50 works good for us. And so I just want to go formally just change that. And then there's some arcane things about communicating, like you should mail it out and stuff like that. Nobody mails stuff out anymore. So that's really it. Any questions about that? I know I went really fast. I told you it's really long. So, yeah.
Can I make 2 comments? So one on the teacher thing, the certifications. You didn't really say this, but I'll say it. Like that process of hiring a teacher is so involved. We want to get it right the first time. We don't ever want to do it again. So like that should, if people have concerns about like, well, you're looking for non-certified folks, it's like we still want to find the right person because that takes so much freaking time. And then the other thing, the campus improvement plans, those are a giant headache. Like I don't even know how else to explain it. I mean, it's hundreds of pages when you put it all together that even the board can't get through. And so if we can align it with what we're doing with Jimmy and the community-based accountability system, then it's like we're actually doing work that helps our kids instead of just like busy work to check a box for the state and say, here's our spreadsheet. It's really cumbersome. It takes a lot of time and it's a pain.
Yeah.
So I just want to make those 2.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, as an organization, the more time we spent, like we're going to be working all day, but when we're spending time working on something, the more it's like authentic and real, the better. And with state laws, there's a lot of bureaucratic stuff. And so thanks for that, David.
Frank, can I?
Yeah.
Or was the information, the last time we got approval for this, we just didn't ask for those particular line items?
Correct.
And this time we're going back and saying, okay, in addition to everything else we asked for, we need 4 more things because now we realize this isn't working. Okay, understood.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, it's good for 5 years. So once you do it, it's good for 5 years. And you have to re-up. And then if you ever want to change it, you do this thing that we're doing now. Thanks for asking. Okay, so here's what I have to do officially. So, and Corey's going to record it. Tori's going to record it. Do I have a motion to approve the District of Innovation renewal with the additions mentioned today? Do I have a motion? Yes. I'll do Elizabeth on the first.
I'll move to approve the DOI renewal with the additions mentioned today.
All right, do I have a second?
Yes. Second.
Yes, Stephanie from Cambridge is a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate in the affirmative.
Aye.
All right, anybody against indicate in the negative. All right, record 0 negative. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Now this goes to the board. Well, I got to post it, I think, and then it goes to the board. Thank you so much. I know that was a long call, but we got to do this efficient. I'm looking forward to handing it over to somebody. Who's next?
Brian.
I think Brian is.
I'm up.
Yeah.
All
Right. So as he's setting up, I'll remind you all that we had a little subcommittee from this group, and we had some additional parents working all last year actually on instructional technology issues. And Brian, they're done with their work, and so he's going to do a short presentation for us. He'll do a longer presentation for the trustees, just to show you where everything landed. And so
I missed the first half of what you said. So,
sorry.
so I'm probably going to say the same thing. So this is kind of a follow-up from a presentation I made to DEAC back in, it's either in April or May last year. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background, kind of at a quick clip, just to catch those people up that may not have been on this committee last year. So, a little over a year ago, the board had charged, really the district, to develop a set of technology beliefs and guidelines for us in Alamo Heights. That work was brought to me, and we formed a subcommittee of DEAC to work on that. So we worked on that over the course of the year. We've gone through we're in our second year of it. Our committee last year was made up of these individuals over here on the side. As we came into this year, there's really kind of a call to expand that committee a little bit further so that we had more teacher representation and more parent representation on it. So we added a few members this year. An overview of the work. So we started meeting last September, a year ago September, and really looked at everything from, what other districts were doing. So we looked at exemplars, we went through research, we looked at state standards, so our TEKS and ISTE standards. We got feedback from, colleagues and parents and students. We looked at February feedback and really relied on a lot of the professional experience of our committee members as well. What we ended up with through all these discussions is really 4 themes, right? So we all these discussions throughout the year kind of fit into one of these themes. So we had discussion, we summarized that discussion into 4 different themes, and then under each of those themes, we developed a set of beliefs and then a set of actions, right? We ended up with a draft document last spring that included, what each of those themes was about, the beliefs that aligned to that theme, and then the actions we were recommending that the district take to put those beliefs into practice. So it just wasn't a bunch of words on paper. So we took this draft document back in the spring and presented it to DEAC. We got feedback from a bunch of different groups. We got feedback from this committee. We got feedback from teachers, administrators, and met with our librarians. Got some feedback from them, our instructional coaches, parents. The board gave us some feedback over late last spring. And then summer came, and we the committee kind of went away for a couple months. And we came back this year, and what we did is we took all that feedback that was documented and, started looking at that. And then over the past couple months, what we've done is really revised and revisited that draft plan based on the feedback that we received. What we ended up with was a document that includes an overwork of the work to be done, or of the work that was done. There's kind of like a cover page to it. A description of each of those themes. And then we have 18 beliefs and 18 recommendations for action. Does that make sense? Any questions kind of on that process that we went through with this? Okay. So, I'm going to go through this at a real quick clip because I'm going to give this document to you here in a second. Just kind of real quick what each of these themes is about, right? So we have this theme of communication, right? This is about, family accessibility to student work. This is about a strong classroom-to-home connection. This seems about collaboration, transparency, and continuous improvement. Our guidelines theme is making sure that we're balanced in our classrooms, that there's a balance between tech and non-tech, practices. That the integration of technology is meaningful and purposeful. Once again, there's a balance of screen time with our students, and ensuring that what we are doing is enhancing learning in the classroom. Our support theme, this is really, a lot of this is about like PD, making sure that it's accessible for all of our students, making sure that we address the needs of our community as well when it comes to building their capacity. And then our evaluation theme really just kind of looks at, that continuous improvement, making sure that what we have in place is actually, we're getting the results that we expected from, a program or an app or a practice. So what I'm going to do, before I go there. So there's kind of like the beliefs part of this document, and then the last page of this document deals with screen time guidelines. So this was actually an action that we're including in because we think it's important with this beliefs document. So we've looked at a lot of information, right? We looked at our February feedback from last year, and what we saw was that the vast majority of our parents thought, that the level of technology in the classrooms was appropriate. There were, a small percentage that had some concerns and they shouldn't be discounted. But overall, the vast majority thought that we were on the right track. We have kind of this culture that's been in place even before I've gotten here that we support technology. We just want to make sure that it's active and creative and community building, right? Those are the types of practices we're looking for in our classroom. And this one is impossible for you to read, but this is part of February feedback as well. And what teachers have told us, we asked them, okay, what types of activities are you doing in your classroom? And you can see this is elementary and this is secondary over here. What we found was that teachers are saying, well, we're doing skill practice. That's the number one at the elementary level is skill practice. Right, so, those math games and spelling games and things like that. Secondary skill practice is second. And then it's things like online assessments, like kind of like the Google Classroom type things. So we saw a disconnect between, we want active, creative practices, but we're seeing as a lot of skill building practices. So we developed a set of guidelines. We looked at some research from, a group called everyschool.org. I met with every grade level from pre-K through 5, got teacher feedback on what this might look like. And where we ended up with was a set of guidelines and recommendations for students when they're individually on an iPad, doing those rote skill practice in the classroom. What we felt was appropriate, and this is going to be a living document, right? We're going to feel it out this year. When we meet next year, we'll revisit this again. Was this right? Was it wrong? But pre-K, we're looking at 15 minutes a day. And then as we move through the elementary level, we get into like instructional blocks. So, 15 minutes during math block might, students would be doing those types of skill practices. Up to 15 minutes. That's not a minimum. So 15 minutes all the way up to 30 minutes at the high school level. What I want to do is I'm going to give you this document. I'm going to collect this back from you because this hasn't gone to the board yet. You just give them the last set of eyes on it. I'm going to give you about 5 or 6 minutes, maybe just with an elbow partner to kind of read through it. And then we'll see if there's any questions that you all have on that.
So is an instructional block considered like that would be math or read whatever?
Yeah,
for-
yeah.
So it may be several subjects a day, correct?
Right, so it'd be like a 15 minutes in your math block, 15 minutes in your English language arts block. Yeah. With the exception of pre-K and kindergarten. Just put them right there on my sitting. Thanks.
So did they say that? Because that's pre-K to second grade. And I'm still. Guidelines. I didn't even think of
What's the balance like? Is there also an encouragement to think creative ways to do skill building that don't involve technology, or have we abandoned it? What's a phone caddy in high school?
Okay, and they have it's like a shoe rack almost, right? And the kids would come in, when they come in, they're supposed to put their phones in the phone bag.
Every teacher does that?
That was,
It's up to
Just somehow to
teachers.
just keep it away from the student, that was the purpose of it?
Yeah, the classroom teacher has the discretion to decide whether they want to have that practice or not. The middle school, it's different. It's
Right, there's nothing.
When you're trying to revisit it though, are you trying to take it away or to make it more?
the intent behind that was like some more consistency.
Yeah.
But we didn't want it, you know, from this document's point of view, that's more of a campus thing to work through. So it's more of having that discussion at the campus level and then letting the campus figure out how to address that. Yep.
Why does it bump up to 20 minutes per instructional block in third grade? It just feels like that third to
Yeah.
eighth is a really big
Yeah.
age
That
gap.
was really just based on the feedback we got from, one, the research we were looking at. We saw that kind of pre-K through second kind of level, and then third through fifth level, and then kind of secondary, and two, with the feedback we got from teachers as well. I think part of that deals with that third grade is really where testing starts. So there's, you know, a need to get kids comfortable.
Right,
with
okay,
the
that makes
tools.
sense, yeah.
Yeah.
For an insight from the dual credit and AP point of view, for 11th and 12th grade, specifically for dual credit and AP English, 30 minutes is a little bit too low, I think. I'd say maybe 45 minutes for 11th and 12th grade because we are in that AP and the dual credit where we have a lot of things that they have to write, spend a lot of time doing individual writing.
Right, so I would, what we're talking about on those specifically are individually doing rote skill building activities. So is it things like,
Like if you had a grammar, some colleges have a grammar thing that says you got to go practice how to use commas. It'd be that kind of thing. It would not be typing essays or researching.
correct,
Or
right,
making slides
That's a good
or
distinction, yeah.
presentations.
right.
That's not
Mhm.
under this. And
Because we
there's
still want to encourage the use of technology, just in a sense that aligns with our beliefs as a district, which is that, you know, active and communicative and creative ways, and not just kind of sit and get math fluency.
And did the committee get the sense that, let's say you're a teacher who was not doing these, you were not obeying or doing the 15 minutes, was there encouragement to think of other ways to tackle rote skill building that were outside of technology?
Well, I think that's kind of like a next step then, once these are in place. So once this stuff is in place, once, you know, we kind of get the blessing on these beliefs, right? Then the work begins of putting into
How do you
practice,
adjust the-
those recommendations for action and addressing those types of things.
Can I just highlight a tension that's always here no matter what? Is we try to hire excellent teachers who have great pride in their classroom. So whenever we do something from the top down, like it kind of, it just irks them a little bit because they're kind of like, I'm a professional, I'm very good at what I do, that's why you hired me, and now you're telling me what to do in my classroom. So this is needed, like we needed a common understanding in my view, but it's also like we got to be mindful, like how do we balance like our belief in that person in that classroom with also setting expectations like this. So that's just a tension that's inherent in it all. I don't know the right way to do it, but I just wanted to point it out.
I see this a lot like kind of our homework guidelines, where there's those recommendations on how much homework students should be getting per night. It's not saying you will be doing 15 minutes per day. It's, and there's an understanding that, there's times throughout the year where, they may be doing research projects. So there was also the discussion about, we wanted to make sure that we were talking about these types of activities and not those types of activities that, students are doing research or creating presentations or, some sort of collaborative.
I will say, when you came and talked to us, something that was important to us as teachers, I teach second grade, is that for us to be able to continually challenge students on their level, we do need those times built in for individual rote things, because If I'm sitting there old school with a set of flashcards for addition facts, and your kid has mastered them, that is a waste of time. They could be doing subtraction facts or multiplication facts. I have parents from my class over there, their kids went all the way through multiplication and some of them into division, even as second graders, because they were able to individually use programs to work at their level. So those are times where we don't use it as like a filler or like we really are working with students, and that's a great way for us also to do small group and to track your child's data. They then track their own data. Kids will set their own goals and say, my goal is that I know 60% of the facts by such and such a date. And then they actually go in and they fill out their own data sheets and they show those to parents at parent conferences. They set new goals. Okay, I didn't meet my goal, now I want to do this. This is what I'm going to do at home to support that. So it's not just them sitting there mindlessly playing. There was a lot of thought when Brian came to talk to us about how we're using programs that the school district has purchased for us.
So I'd love to hear from, let's do one more. Go ahead.
I just had 2 comments. My oldest is in 6th grade, so I'm kind of new to all of this. And I was pretty apprehensive going in with how much screen time they're going to be using. First comment is I've been really impressed with the communication between the teachers in 9 different classes or whatever in different communication styles. Some emails, some posted through Google Classroom, etc. They all do it in different ways to try to reach all of the parents, which I really appreciate. But my second comment is on this guideline about updating homework guidelines to require that digital homework be accessible in another format. I haven't really seen that, and maybe that's maybe we're working towards that. But it does seem like my 6th grader, everything is via Google Classroom to the point where, if he forgets to hit that turn in button, it doesn't get submitted. So I'm just kind of curious about that.
So that particular action was a result of a conversation that we had about students who may not have access to technology at home. If everything's, I won't say everything, but if this homework assignment is a digital assignment, and we have this population of students who aren't able to, access the internet at home, or they don't have devices at home, we need to make sure that there's alternative assignments available for them. As a tech department, we provide Chromebooks or iPads to some of our lower socioeconomic students that need it, but that doesn't necessarily address the internet gap that may exist. So that's kind of where that particular one was coming from, not that.
So the intention is still to have most of the homework or classwork to be digital. It's just making that accessible.
I wouldn't say is the intent. That's kind of lies in the teacher's realm or the campus realm, not in this so much.
But I just want to point out, I don't know if it was if I inferred incorrectly in your question, but the premise is all of these things are, these are things that we're not doing, we want to start addressing. So if you're seeing it, we don't do that, that's correct. We've identified it's something that we need to address.
Dumb question, but what's the difference? Like, it says we might replace iPads with Chromebooks. Are Chromebooks just more like easily controlled with
Well, it's got a keyboard for one.
Especially
there was some talk with state testing going completely online 3 through 12. Would it benefit 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade to go from iPads to Chromebooks? We piloted that last year. We put some Chromebooks out in classrooms last year and let the campuses kind of evaluate and provide some feedback on that. And the overwhelmingly response we got from 3rd through 5th grade teachers was remain with iPads.
I think the intent behind your conversation was, given that kids use keyboards, or they have to use keyboards eventually, the question was, gosh, should we start getting them used to that?
There was a question about, doing the constructive responses, and last year STAR had new item types, and they had like the drag and drop and a few other ones. And we weren't, so sure on, how's that gonna operate on, on an iPad versus a Chromebook. But everything worked out. Yep.
I've got little kids, so kindergarten and first, and littler, but, so I'm kind of new at this, but on the iPads, when you send them out to go do a skill building activity, are you ensured that that's what they're doing on the iPad, or is there the ability to click around and do other stuff and?
So all our teachers now address iPad. For both iPads and Chromebook, iPads we have an application called Apple Classroom, where the teacher can essentially all the iPads she can pull up on her screen, and she can see if this student is on task. She can close stuff down. She can send commands out. So the teacher does have that ability to monitor that way. And then on the Chromebook side, they have an application called Land School that does the same thing, essentially.
But there's safeguards from like ads popping up and stuff like that?
I mean, no, not that ads are going to pop. I mean, if they're out on the internet,
Our students
they'll
don't
come
use
across
Safari
ads.
on at our campus.
So it's like turned off, or?
It's just not accessible. But I can tell you, in my classroom, I'm a kinder teacher at Howard, Sarah Trigard, I have my iPad on my desk, so small group time, and I have this open. You can actually see exactly what's on their screen.
Okay.
So it's a beautiful picture of every screen, and I can touch that screen and put on the brakes for them. Like, oh, I notice you're on CodeSpark. That's not what we're doing right now. We're doing reading in Epic. So like, I have, and the other nice thing is I can force it to only open what I want them to be in.
So are all
it
teachers
locks,
trained to do that? 'Cause
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
But it locks it, so like, hey, all iPads are only allowed to do Epic right now, and I can send it, and then only Epic opens, so they can't go to a different screen.
I will say, we have filtering in place that's
Yeah, they
blocking
can't get to
inappropriate
ads.
content,
Yeah.
and that's just district wide, and that's and that filtering is tighter at the younger level than it is at the
They can't Google search.
Secondary level.
My second and third graders, I've been in class with them a couple times each year, and I'm glad y'all can do that. I think, like David said, it comes down to the teacher, but there have been multiple times where kids are doing math, and they're watching the LSU football games, or or looking at songs, and my kids have told me that, and I sit there with 4 little kids in a circle, and they're all on different, and so I don't know if all the teachers can do that, or maybe they're choosing not to, but some of the stuff they're looking at is, number one, it's not math today, but it's even way past, like, man, I wonder if their parents know they're looking at that, and I don't know the answer to how to do that, but I think it is good if teachers can see that and also need to regulate, because that's happened multiple times where it's a concern, and that's in second grade, third grade.
I think we need to wrap this up at some point, because we have this, we've been 25 minutes on it. We'll take a couple, your last question. But I do want to point is, that's a great point, and I hope that you'll see that addressing that should be in this document. Like this notion of training teachers and that kind of thing. So John, I mean, that's the point, is that to know that we do have issues that we need to work through. And that's in this, that's part of the plan.
That's built in, that whole effectively using instructional
Like that
technology
needs to get better.
piece.
There's no question about that. One last little tip.
Well, I've subbed at the junior school, and it gets even trickier at that level where they're pulling like images to be part of their project, and so they do have access to more, and unless I'm constantly, as a sub, I don't have that like screen to what everybody's looking at, and unless I'm constantly circling the room and being like, hey, then they're off track, a lot of them. Some kids aren't.
Yeah. Well, this is obviously a topic we could talk about forever.
I do want to get, I'm just going to get one more minute.
You got it.
Just especially from the teachers in here, does this feel kind of just initial, is it settling okay? I think it was responsive to the feedback we got from teachers. We have it out, I got it out with some committee members to talk with, a few teachers. But I just wanted, before we kind of put this out there officially, just kind of gauge the temperature. The overall beliefs document, did that sit right with everyone? Any feedback on that? Okay, great. So our next steps then is I'll be presenting this to the board next week, and then again at the board meeting. And then kind of moving forward, we got a whole bunch of stuff that we we could work on.
Two quick things. We got to start, right? And so like that's my big deal. It's like let's just get started. I don't know how we're gonna get to perfect, but we got to get started. And then like you have wonderful action items under all of these. Have you already envisioned a process to help you run through completion of those action items, or we're not there yet?
Some of them we've already completed, so things like addressing that. Other things are kind of like ongoing, like our PD.
Yep.
And then there's a lot of stuff that
we got to create a
get
process.
started on.
Okay.
Yep. So and we'll have something for the board that kind of shows you where we're at in those different action items.
All right, we have one more question. That's it. Close the floor.
See, it's always the best for the middle.
It's about cell phones.
Uh-huh.
We make our children wait painfully late to get a cell phone, and I have found that a lot of teachers at the junior school assume that kids have cell phones and will say like they can take the pictures for this project on their phones. Well, and then I'm kind of like, well, my kid doesn't have a phone. And then at the high school, I know my son is using his phone for school projects, and I know then the phone is in his hand during class for whatever he wants because he's texting me. And
so in the district, I mean, we have a policy at middle school that phones are not allowed. Before school, after school, I think they're okay, but during school, they're to be put away. So that'd be something we need to talk with our middle school about. High school, we loosen that up a little bit, and that's teacher discretion at that point. So we have like a BYOB, wrong party, at the high school level where, I mean, students are free to use their laptops or, cell phones if the teacher allows that, so.
So I'll follow up with the principal about the junior school story. Because they're not supposed to have them on their person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at the junior school.
But assuming that they should have one at home to use, I think is your concern, right?
No, I think
but I heard it was like, use your phone to take a picture of
Like
this
pat
project.
down, that's the
It's like a part of a project at school.
Yeah.
Like you can take
They're supposed
pictures
to use
with your
their
phone
phone
for this poetry thing or this science thing. It's not limited to one class. It's something.
So
that-
we'll follow up with that internally, because that's something that we need to.
No, it's right.
Okay, I'm gonna collect these back from you, because this is still draft stuff, and then,
It's a rule.
sorry, Jimmy, we're not following your time again.
We should look into it.
All right,
Great
so
questions. Thanks
I'm
for
the
feedback.
closer. Like I'm
Yeah,
the final.
I like
I'm
that.
what you've been waiting for. And you know why? Because you know what we're going to talk about? SAT scores. Yeah. So it's going to take me a minute to kind of get over here. So what I want you to do is just turn to an elbow partner and talk. So if you'll scoot next to Kristen or over next to Steph, and just share what you remember about SAT. For some of you, it may just have been last year, or you may have kids going through it, or you took it years ago. So just turn and talk for a moment about SAT. Let's do that, and I'm going to get over here.
My last experience was
No.
Same. Exactly.
I don't know, it used to be, you had to use script handwriting, you couldn't write. You had to script it out.
All right, I'm going to put them together. 5, 4. All right, do you hear that chatter went up? Because everyone has an SAT story, right? So anyone want to share an SAT story or something, an experience or a thought you had about SAT? Yes, ma'am, right here, students in the room.
Last year I fell asleep during my reading section because it's like the first part, and you actually have to be awake for that.
You do.
But it's like 7 a.m.
It is.
and your brain's not awake yet, and you're taking reading.
Oh my gosh.
Like if you had the math section first, I think it'd be easier. But that's a them problem.
Things impact your score,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else want to share?
Okay,
Yes,
so this
Cheryl.
is a funny one. So I took my SAT at Alamo Heights High School. I didn't attend school in Alamo Heights, but I came here because you would sign up for a place. And I remember walking in the door, and I stepped on the Alma Heights logo,
Oh.
which was a very bad thing to do, and someone yelled at me, and so I
Right
was
before
upset
taking
and
that
crying
test.
before I even took the SAT.
Yeah.
So I've learned you don't step on
Yeah.
that. So and that stuck with me
Yeah.
ever since, and that's been a
So
long time.
I love how those two stories illustrate that while the SAT does give us some good information,
Scary.
and we do lock people who fail it in a closet, it does not define a student's potential or who they are, because there's a lot going on. It is one test. But I'm excited about, you told me, it is working. We're gonna live in Pillar 2, which is all about academic readiness. Are kids ready for their next stage of education? So this is our kids college ready. When they leave us after 13 years here in our district, kinder on, are they ready? Are they ready to be successful there? And, here's why, and we're gonna do a deep dive on this. So I'm gonna put it in context, and then we're gonna walk through some data, because it is the first time we're looking at the impact of school day SAT scores on our district cohort scores. So here's just some general trends. So one, competition remains high. So Common App, which is where a lot of students, it's a general portal you can apply to a lot of colleges, saw an 8% increase in the number of students applying last year. And they also saw an increase in the number of school students were applying, 4. Whereas before it was 3, now it's an average of 8 schools. So competition is high. The next is, these two are gonna go together, but I think it's interesting. So when pandemic hit, a lot of schools, and I've seen reports as high as 96% of colleges and universities went test optional. And some have stayed that way, and some have come back. This is changing. Currently, it's about 80%, but this is changing because the importance, and when people went test optional, it was, we're gonna do a holistic review of each student. But part of that holistic review is the college essay, and what's casting a shadow over that right now? ChatGPT AI. So, and I didn't even put up here Supreme Court new things that have emerged out of that. So the world of college admissions is in flux. But one thing that is a component of it is college testing. So we're gonna walk through SAT as it is now, knowing that 4 years from now, it may be essential, or it may, I don't know what's gonna happen. But that's where we are now. And it may be that this pendulum of test optional, we're beginning to see it swing back to testing is more important. All right, so, oops, wrong way. All right, SAT scores. So what I'm gonna share with you, and we're gonna pass these out. Here's what I'm gonna ask you to do. This is all the data. You guys, turn it upside down in front of you right now. Teachers know this move, because otherwise you're gonna read it all, you're not gonna listen. But I'm giving you the data here. Every year, we get a cohort report from College Board. And it is from our students who crossed the stage last year. They may have taken SAT multiple times, but it takes all of those scores, whether it was school day or the weekend. They took it at Alamo Heights, they took it at Clark. It takes all of those scores and gives us a report. So that's what this is. It is only seniors who graduated last year. And it's unique because we put in school day SAT when the seniors from last year were juniors. So we've had it for a couple years, but we didn't see how it played out with a cohort until this year. So school day SAT is in the spring. Any junior can come to school during the school day. It's a late start, or has been a late start, and they take the SAT for free. So they're not having to navigate schedules where, am I gonna go to baseball or am I gonna take the SAT? It's during the school day. It's in their classroom where they know, don't step on the seal, with teachers they know as proctors, bathrooms they know. So it's a familiar, we're playing it's a home game for them. So here's this year, we had 385 students, and the mean score was an 1121. For those of you that don't know, the top is 1,600. So that was this cohort from 2023. For comparison, 2022, we only had 274 students who took SAT. The mean score was an 1148. So right off, what do you notice between 22, 23? More kids and
Lower score.
lower score. Yeah. So is that really shocking? Yeah. Why do you think that might be?
Kids who wouldn't have taken it got an
Yeah,
opportunity.
Sarah, absolutely. Kids who may not have taken it before took it, and now we have a more representative score. All right, let's keep peeling this onion a little bit. So now we're going to talk about how many kids actually participated in school day, SAT. So we had school day, 385 kids who took it during school day. Kids who that is the only SAT they took, was the one we offered at our school, was 154 kids. Kids who took it school day and on the weekend, 204 kids, and kids that only took it on the weekend, 27. So when we look at this, a couple things emerge. One, kids who took it multiple times did better. Partly because you're more familiar with it, you know you got a good night's sleep, so you don't fall asleep in it. Like you know, because you've done it before and you're going to do it again. Also, we had 7% of kids who didn't take advantage of a school day SAT. Like, I'm curious, what's the why? Were they sick on that one day? Is this just reflective of kids who transferred in after we'd already done it? Or are some kids saying, hey, this is a day off of school? If so, missed opportunity. Like, I want to learn more about this. And then this last one we just talked through. All right, so let's keep going on this. Let's look at our scores compared to national norms. So in general, when you talk about SAT, these are historic kind of thumbnail benchmarks. If you're scoring a 1350, you're at the 90th percentile or higher. If you're at a 1200, you're at the 75th percentile or higher. That's just kind of benchmark, so you kind of have a sense of, since it's scaled to 1600, where all that falls. So these are scores in a 200-point range. From 1400 to 1600, you can see that. Here's the percentage of kids. So we had 10% of kids who scored 1400 or higher. Nationally, 7% of kids. In Texas, 4%. And you can look at 1200 to 1390, again, the percentages. What do you notice there? Yeah. Yeah, our scores are stronger than both a national or a Texas norm when we had a representative sample of kids. Like, let that sit in. Because it's not hard to get a really strong if you're only having your top quarter of the class test. So I'm exceptionally proud of this. Because overall, we have twice as many kids in the top 10% and 25% as Texas. Like, that's amazing. That's huge kudos, not only to our amazing high school, but all the teachers who contribute to kids being ready for this. All right, so let's keep going. Another important thing about SAT is if you're going to college in Texas, before you can take that entry-level 1300 English 1 freshman course, you have to meet what's called TSI requirements. Students, you know what I'm talking about. And part of that is you can meet those requirements through the SAT. So in math, what's called college ready is if you have a score of 530 or more in math. They say you have kids who can score that have a 75% chance of making a C or higher in their first math class in college. In reading and writing, it's a 480. We had 63% of our kids who were college ready for math and 79% of kids who were college ready in reading and writing. Now there's one thing in here that I know, James, I know exactly what your eyes are looking at.
Yeah.
I know. James is a teacher in our English department. What on here is surprising to you? Like, it's this. I know that coming out of COVID, we've been working on math. I am really surprised that that's our reading score. So I want to know more about, wow, what was that? Like that, we did not see that in our STAR scores. We do not see that in our MAP scores. Why am I seeing it here? So that's something we want to know more about as we look. This is because to be a TSI, you need to be college ready in both. Not just math, not just reading, but both. So we had 62% of kids become college ready through SAT, both this year and last. But remember our participation rate, 62% of 385 testers is 239 students. Some students didn't take SAT, so there's 401 kids who crossed the stage last year. We sent 60% of our kids to college, not from SAT alone. This doesn't include ACT, but not needing any kind of developmental class. Year prior, we sent 43% of our kids. Now, other kids had ACT scores, but that's a good thing. Because as families, you don't want to pay for developmental courses. And for students, you want to feel like you're college ready. So the other reason this is important, you guys remember what we talked about last time? This is state accountability. CCMR is kids are both math and reading, and it went from a 60 to make an A to an 88. So we want to get that number up even higher. We want a minimum of 88% of our kids having mastery of both math and reading before they go to college. So that's a goal area for us. All right, next steps. Number one, there is SAT, there's ACT, there's also something called the TSIA, which is like an SAT, but it's only for Texas. That's why it starts with the T. And it's given in our counseling office, and it's given 4 times a year. And it costs, I think, $15, $20. We need to look at our kids who aren't yet college ready. We can do this during the school day. It's a shorter test. It's not that 4-hour test. So making sure that we are inviting those kids and then re-inviting those kids to get them TSI ready through TSI if their scores on SAT aren't there yet. That's one that's completely within our control. Another is just increasing the study opportunities. Junior year, kids are in PSAT, which gives you scores about what are you doing well on, what are areas to improve, and then in the spring they take SAT. We have the data. We've always offered a course, a semester course that was an SAT prep. No one ever signs up for it. We need to do a better job of marketing that. And a better job of, we've had a summer class that's an SAT prep, so parents aren't having to pay $3,000 to go to an SAT class when we can offer it here. Plus just advisory lessons and Saturday scholars. Making sure also with that is there's a parent communication piece that parents know how to read. You know, some of those reports are easy to read and some are not. So making sure parents know how to read it, how to get it, because it comes to the child. They're sign-in saying your scores are available. And so that parents know how to read it. Also, that parents have a 1-pager. Here's all the days we're doing SAT, ACT, TSI. So that you know, oh gosh, we got your scores, but I think if you studied, you can knock that up 20 points. You fell asleep. You know, you didn't feel good that day. So there's opportunities to take it again because kids who do take it again do better.
Jeremy, quick question. If you take it again, do they automatically take the latest score or the highest?
Super score, which is I'm going to take your best score
and combine them.
And yeah, on either, if you took it whenever and they super score it.
Okay.
Comes with a cape and everything. And the last is we do have kids who, SAT and ACT are slightly different. We have kids who do better on ACT. So walking through the feasibility of doing a school day ACT. Those are our next steps. They're addressing this. All right, you ready to play a fun game? All right. In this, it also tells us where do kids want their scores sent. So what were the top 10 universities? All right, in your mind, think of some you think are going to make the list. And this is for kids who graduated in 2023. You ready? All right, number 10. Ooh, well, number one. All right, we have Texas A&M. 37% of the kids wanted their scores there.
Texas.
Guess what's next? UT Austin. In parentheses, that is the average SAT score of the freshman class. Texas Tech rounds up the top 3. Auburn, y'all, came in 4th.
Wow.
5th, Sick 'em Bears, is right up there. University of Arkansas, University of Georgia, UTSA, University of Mississippi, and Texas State. This was a really unusual, we don't usually see this number of out-of-state schools, but last year's graduating class was ready to get out of Texas. So this is how that falls across there. So next time I come, I will talk a little bit about ACT. We don't quite have this depth of knowledge, but I think it'll be an interesting part to compare SAT to ACT as we talk about, are we sending our students out, not only to be competitive to apply, but more importantly, to be successful once they're in. So that's what we'll talk a little bit more about next time. Yes, Mr. Hornberger,
Sorry.
who has
So
6 kids going to
you-
college.
yeah. you mentioned that the students that take multiple SATs get a super score to submit to college. Okay, but I thought that the ranking that you showed for our campus said last taken SAT
Correct.
score only.
So that is for our report that comes to Alamo Heights is most recent. If I'm applying to SMU and I submit 3 test scores to SMU, they're gonna find their highest. They're not pulling from this.
So basically what I'm getting at is that what's reported to us as our high school is actually less good is what our kids are actually doing. I don't know about what it is.
Usually kids, the more they go on, their scores go up.
Yeah.
So in general, but yeah, there may be kids who took it a 3rd time and their second
Yeah.
score was better.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not super scored, to your
Right.
point also.
Cool.
All right.
Anything else for Jim? Well, hey, let's give it that round. That was really good. Very informative. Well, I appreciate all of you being here. I want to give a shout out especially to Gia and Audrey, right with me? Audrey, our high school students. Thanks so much for being here. I know you guys have a lot going on. So, thank you all. We're done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Do we get to keep this?
Yeah.
Hang around. Visit. I just need more. I'll recycle that.
You feel
Good, thanks again.
Thank you.
Man.